About a day after I posted the first part of my Wish rewrite video, a friend decided to post something in a shared Discord server. What the fuck? To start this off, thank you so much for all the subscribers. We now definitely have way more than 20 regular watchers. This might be silly to say in hindsight, but I really didn't expect the video to blow up the way it did. I say silly because I probably should have figured that more negatively charged videos like this one tend to do better in the YouTube algorithm. That and the Wish rewrite space is pretty big still, so of course people were gonna flock to this one at least to see what's up. But it's still really insane just how quickly it happened, you know? I have over 6,000 subscribers at the time of recording this. My classmates have found me in their YouTube recommendations. The president of the Animation Union probably knows I exist by now. I wish I was joking. And then of course, people pointed out things on the video immediately after it went up that had me like, oh gosh, dang it, why didn't I think of that? That would have been great! I should have waited to post this! See, this is why studios hire whole teams of writers and not just one mentally unstable white girl in art school. Point is, the video blew up, I hit a lot of subscribers, and I don't know how to celebrate these sorts of things. So, Q&A time, yay! Let's answer some of your questions for little old me. Trussell, I will end you. Anyways, I'm 5'2". There's a reason my online persona looks like this. Gabriella Mitchell, 5896. What made you choose the passion for art? I've always been in pretty close proximity to art. I drew a lot as a kid. My mom still has a lot of stuff I drew when I was like 6 up in the house, like framed and stuff. I also remember my teachers in elementary school not really liking me because I would doodle on my math homework when I was supposed to be paying attention, and I would also make these little comic books out of printer paper, staple them together, and then leave them on the whiteboard for other kids to pick up and read. Definitely wasn't the way to be going about advertising my work, I'll say that much. So yeah, I was one of those could never put a pencil down type kids. I also grew up in a town that was full of public art galleries and had artsy events over the summers. I actually worked at a food stall at the summer art fair for 3 years, but even as a kid, being exposed to mostly fine arts like sculptures and paintings, I figured, oh, I can't make a stable job out of this. How do you make money? By selling your pieces? What if no one wants to buy any of my stuff? I guess even as a dumb kid I was aware enough of the starving artist stereotype to think that there was no possible way I could do only art as a job, you know? I was actually thinking about being something like a vet or a zoologist when I was in middle school. They seemed more lucrative than the art thing, you know? But I still took art classes in school, and then in my freshman year of high school we went on a field trip to this art college in town and got to peek into the classroom and take a look at what the students were doing. That was the day it kinda clicked. Wait, animation involves art and drawing stuff. And I live in California. I could be an animator! And yeah, that's why I choose to pursue my passion for art. Funny enough, I do more comics than videos these days. They're a little easier to do on the side while I work on school stuff. Violet the Book Cat 7457 asks, what made you want to be an animation major, and what are some positives/challenges you dealt with due to your major? Well, I kinda already answered that first one, but I can answer the second one. I'll start with the positives. I made a lot of friends who had similar hobbies and interests while in school. At least a few are now my go-to brain rot buddies when it comes to either media we like or just our own stuff we want to talk about. I also ended up learning a lot of cool things that I probably wouldn't have if I stayed strictly self-taught. My visual development professor actually gave the whole class a mini lecture on how to lighten color darker-skinned characters because I was working on designs for my webcomic side project for a class assignment, and I was having trouble figuring out this one guy's color scheme. In terms of challenges, most of it was just like, I guess imposter syndrome is the right word for it. When I started college, I wasn't even in the animation BFA program yet. I had to take foundation art classes first to even qualify enough to apply to be in the animation major. And these foundation classes were tough. It didn't help that this was during quarantine and I had to figure out a lot of things by myself at home over Zoom. My foundation drawing class was the worst. I don't say that like, oh, the teacher sucks. Like, no, it was just, I struggled the most with it. That's what I mean. Assignments were due at really odd times of the day, and it was all still lifes. We had to set up the still lifes by ourselves since it was all remote, and the professor would have to critique the setup of the still life before we could even start drawing them. Some of you that are more inclined to realism and like Vanitas paintings might think this isn't so bad. I'll admit that. I was pretty used to drawing cartoons, so that totally could have been part of why I struggled. But we weren't allowed to use blending stumps. And keep in mind, we had to draw a lot of big shadows. Don't believe me? Here's one of my assignments. The professor wanted us to draw shadows like that, with a specific penciling technique that creates nice even shapes with no pencil strokes visible. It is a lot more time consuming, and for the same looking result! But yeah, those of you looking to get into animation in college, I wouldn't worry too much. You're going to have some difficult classes right at the start that might start to make you reconsider. Those are the demons talking. Don't listen to them. You're good enough to be here, and you will get through it and get into the major. Now, some random tater 412 has 2 questions. First one, I'm currently studying animation and want to go into the industry myself. What would be your piece of advice for art/illustration/animation majors? I know some other people might say stuff like, practice life drawings, have a solid portfolio, all that jazz. And that's correct, you should do that. But also, I feel like, you say you're studying animation and you're going into the industry, so I assume you already know all that. I've got 2 other pieces of advice for you. 1, only include things in your portfolio that you're really good at. I know I was like this at first, making a page for every little art thing I did so I could show off as much as possible to potential people, but I learned that the last thing you want to be in an industry that usually is looking to hire you for one thing and one thing only is a jack of all trades and master of none. If you really like character design, get really good at character design. If you want to be a storyboard artist, get really good at storyboarding. You're also totally allowed to have individual portfolios tailored to whatever sort of job you may be applying to, if you don't want to just link the hiring manager to a site with all your stuff on it for them to sort through. My other piece of advice, as boring as it may sound, is important. It's networking. It's one of those things you hear from time to time, and it sounds like boring business stuff. At least it did to me whenever I heard it, because I only ever heard it in, stuffy business people context. And we're all art kids. We all know why we picked art. We all know that networking sounds like the introvert's nightmare. But there's a reason you hear it so much. It's because it's important. Keep in touch with any friends you make in animation or art, and your professors if you went the college route like I did. Make a LinkedIn. Just keep making connections and talking to people. If you keep tabs on people and keep them as friends and acquaintances, they might pull you along with them to whatever jobs they might land. And networking doesn't always have to be about approaching people at a job function or school. My first time doing what you could consider networking happened by complete accident. I became Discord friends with these 2 people, Stellar and Cosmo, while we were all participating in the same art contest thingy. Midwich Valley OCT, if y'all know it. They're really chill and nice people. Stell gave me a couple of pointers while I was struggling through my first ever 3D animation course, and Cosmo and I did voice acting for each other's Midwich Valley stuff. There was a lot of pain screaming on both ends. Not to mention, they both just make the most banger art and stories, and they're super nice people, and I'm just, they're so cool is what I'm saying. Anyways, did I mention they're making their own dang TV show that's set to release sometime next year? I don't care if you don't speak Spanish, learn it and then go watch Rockolandia when it drops. Support my friends, they're cool. Anyways, my overall advice is to not only put stuff in your portfolio that you're super good at, it's to keep in touch with everyone you meet, in the industry or just adjacent to it. Raika GX1634, I'm sorry if I mispronounced that, asks, which artists are a big inspiration? This is gonna say a lot about me, but I genuinely think the first artist to inspire me in a significant way was Kazuo Kato. If you don't know, she's the mangaka behind Blue Exorcist. It was the first manga/anime I ever was exposed to. I still have all the volumes I bought in middle school when I was still super into it. I still need to, finish reading the series and catch up. The last volume I read was 16, and now there's, 30 of them. I think the world building and characters just tickled me in such a way that I was like, oh, I want to make something like this. If we're talking about more recent or influential stuff, the Amulet series by Kazuki Puishi was another big one. If we're talking YouTube-y stuff, Jaden Animations is the reason why my sense of humor is the way it is today. In terms of general arts inspiration, you've got Tom Moore and Cartoon Saloon's work, and of course, as ironic as it is, a handful of Disney films were also big inspirations for me. Another one from Random Tater 14. Since I just started watching your videos, I'm curious, what is the story behind the Murd boy? Isaac, I think his name was? I would love to know more about him. His name is indeed Isaac, you got that right. Right, so Isaac, fun enough, is the subject of my senior thesis film. So you can blame this anxious fictional 16-year-old for the Wish Rewrite Part 2 being set on the back burner. As Tater said, he's a little Murd boy, and his story is he just found out about that, actually. He grew up in foster care, and at age 14, he was taken in by his current foster mom, Nora, a retired surfing champ who now runs a surf shop in a touristy beach town. And by that time, he thought he'd finally gotten over everything. He was feeling confident about his life, he had 2 really good friends who loved and appreciated him. You know, he finally felt like a normal kid, and not some sad little orphan that kids would take pity on. He felt like he finally fit in. And then he turns 16, tries to go surfing with his buddy, gets tumbled by a wave so badly he nearly drowns, and once his surfing buddy actually fishes him out of the water, they find out he's a merman. And he's got a crush on one of his friends from school. Oh no, how will he ever come clean to her about this? The whole conflict of his story, and the conflict of my thesis film at large, is him trying to figure out the best way to break it to his crush that he's a merman without her thinking he's a total freak and leaving him. It all goes well in the end, though. I think my one Discord friend summed it up pretty well. She's a teenage girl, of course she wouldn't mind that he's a merman. Also, if you're wondering, Isaac's birth mom abandoned him on a boardwalk so that some nice humans might find him because she was a teen mom and didn't know if she could be a good mother to him. Because I guess even magical creatures have to deal with all too human problems. That, and it's a lot easier for your boyfriend to be a deadbeat baby daddy when he's got the whole Pacific Ocean to go run away and hide in. Prince of Arts asks, I heard that you're working on a project called Isaac for school. Can you talk about the synopsis? If you can't spoil anything, that's fine. As an alternative question, why do you love art? Well, I think I said all I can about my thesis film in the last question. Oops. But I'll answer the alternative one. I love art because I love to tell stories. I have a lot of ideas swirling around in this meat pile I call my brain, and I've always liked trying to find a comprehensive way to spit those ideas out and show them to people. Plus, I love art because it lets me make memes with my characters.
Ow! Ow! Oh! Hey, what you got there?
LucaBoss15 asks, what inspires your OC animations? I love your Isaac one. I'm a sucker for fantasy and mythical creatures. Hey, same! It depends on the thing, if I'm being honest. Isaac and his whole deal is inspired by my childhood and teenage years growing up in a touristy beach town. That and the handful of merfolk-adjacent media I was exposed to as a kid. For other animations, it depends. Most of my music video type videos start with me making a character for funsies, and then I'll listen to a song and start doing that thing people joke about where you imagine a music video in your head. Except God cursed me with the power and ambition to make those music videos real, so that usually leads to, these. The non-music video stuff happens for similar reasons. I hear a funny audio and think, oh, this would fit this and that OC of mine. And then I make it. Bex5397 asks, what's your funniest experience being an animation major? Boy, I had to really think about this, because there's a lot. There was this one time a dog randomly showed up in the classroom, and we all just collectively stopped what we were doing to just admire the little guy. There was also this one time I walked in on my professor watching dinosaur laser fight in the classroom computer, but hands down, though, the funniest story I had technically didn't even happen when I was an animation major. It happened when I was taking a summer course in high school that was meant to help you learn how to put together a proper animation portfolio to apply to schools with. A couple of seniors were still lurking in the building at the time because they were finishing up their thesis films, and the classroom my summer course was in was right across from the recording booth. And then, during a quiet figure drawing session, we all of a sudden just hear, "Welcome to the beef hole!" And we all just burst out laughing. Like, keep in mind, it was dead quiet, and then that came belting out from across the hall. About a month later, at the end of the course, our parents came over to take a look at our work and also tour the college as part of like a little, open house type thing. And me and my parents went to look at the Cintiq lab. A couple of seniors were working on stuff in there, and one of them was animating a shot for his thesis film. A thesis film about a greasy, trashy fast food restaurant under the 405 called The Beef Hole. And just the other day, as of recording this, I found it on YouTube. That one possum 5766 asks, dogs or cats? Man, why do we always gotta choose? I like both. I've got a little pupper at home that's just an energetic little goober and I love her, but also, is there such thing as baby fever but for a cat? Vivian Morgan 7217 asks, do you love drawing cartoons? Absolutely. Dear Panda Love asks, what's your favorite thing to draw? Comics! I get the same enjoyment and fulfillment I get out of making videos or animations with way less time being eaten up to get it done. Fun fact, my 2 stop-motion shorts I have up on my channel are based on a comic I made as part of an original character tournament, or those of you coming from my friend Banana's channel might know it as, an OCT. I actually met a lot of my friends through OCTs. Some of those friends helped voice act in the Wish video and draw some of the animatic segments. So if you're looking for a way to network, OCTs are a good way to do it. Also, I'm helping run one if you guys are interested. Auditions close January 12th, but I don't know, you guys could still spectate if you want, I don't know. Andreas2681 asks, what's your favorite animated show and movie? Could be either or both. I'll answer for both of these. If we're counting anime in the show question, one of my favorite animated shows of all time is, and probably always will be, Parasite the Maxim. I wouldn't recommend it if you're sensitive to violence and gore. There do be freaky body horror aliens eating people, but it has such profound themes and messages about being human and what makes someone human. Is it simply being born human? Or is it learning to feel? Is it growing and learning what it's like to act selflessly for people you care about? Is it learning to treat every living thing with respect? It's such a great show, I can't recommend it enough. Favorite movie is a harder one. I did recently see The Wild Robot, and that's probably one of the only movies that made me cry real tears. Aside from Coco, but that one has, like, dead family members in it. That doesn't count. It's too easy. Though actually, one I go back to every once in a while is this film called Ethel and Ernest. It's written by the same man who wrote The Snowman, and it's about the lives of his parents, Ethel and Ernest Briggs. It's a very bittersweet film because, like, it's about their whole lives. You know how a movie like this ends. But it's so cute, and it's so fun watching these two regular British people try to understand the changing world around them. There's this one moment where Ernest tries to explain to Ethel what homosexuality is, and it's something me and my cousin quote sometimes, because it's just, it's so silly, it's funny. Tatiana Hernandez, 2865, asks, favorite animated movie/show based solely on animation style? This one's a bit trickier than the last one. I actually had to think about this for a while. It's one thing to pick out a favorite film, but favorite for art style alone is a whole other thing. For movie, that was easy, though. It's hands down any of the Cartoon Saloon films. I guess if I had to pick one of those four, though, The Breadwinner. It's got that classic Cartoon Saloon style, but there's also segments where the main character, Parvana, is telling this epic fairy tale to her little brother, and it's animated in this papercraft puppetry style, and it's just, it's so good. TV show I had to think a little harder about. You don't see a whole lot that stands out style-wise that isn't like Bluey or Arcane or maybe Hilda. Lots of conventionally animated TV looks kind of samey to me. I don't know what to tell you guys. You got your 2D animated Inside Jobs and Owl Houses, your Miraculous Ladybug 3D looking shows. I'm not saying any of those shows are inherently bad because of how they look, just that I wouldn't call them my favorite based on style alone. But I'd say Lego Monkey Kid. Listen, when the Lego shows you grew up with look like Chima and Ninjago, seeing one that comes out that's allowed to look this cool is something that sticks in your brain. Donald Harris 1144 asks, do you think you'll do a face reveal at a certain milestone? Nah, I don't think so. At least not publicly. I know once I graduate and have to apply for jobs in the industry, I'll have to use my real face in applications and stuff, so it's gonna circulate no matter what I do. But the beauty of the internet is I can remain somewhat anonymous. For now, at least. Micah Teal, the lovely composer that helped with the Wish video, asks, if this were to be fully animated into a movie, what would your dream look be for Wish? And not just, do you want 2D or 3D? Give us specifics, please. Hope that makes sense. Hee hee heart. You specified dream look, so I'm assuming this means I wouldn't be worrying about budget, or Disney higher-ups and their actual willingness to go through with it. In that case, I would love to make Wish entirely in the style of Golden Age Disney films. I want to pull a Cuphead with this. Hand-painted cells, multiplane camera, actual real watercolor backgrounds, James Baxter! We're going fully back to our roots, baby! Yeah! The Media Lover asks, do you plan on doing more videos like the Wish rewrite, or is this a one-time thing? Also, what inspired you to do this? Unfortunately, the Wish rewrite is probably going to be a one-time thing, and funnily enough, it's because of what inspired me to do it. I was actually pretty optimistic about Wish, and the movie left me feeling nothing and everything at the same time, and I felt I had to make something about it for that reason. I couldn't just be a hater. I had to make something productive with that hater energy before it completely consumed me and I was left ranting about it to my friends on Discord for the rest of time. Plus, it was less about me absolutely hating Wish and more about me finding the concept art after seeing it in theaters and realizing this relatively average movie was way more of a missed opportunity than I could have ever imagined. The trailers dropping was where I felt optimistic about it. The initial watch of the film was where I felt nothing. Me finding the scrapped concepts is where I felt the everything. On top of this being an anniversary piece meant to celebrate a studio being alive and running for 100 frickin' years and having the general audience consensus being how forgettable it is, the moment you look at the drafts, it's like, wait, you mean you guys just threw all of this out and thought we'd be fine with it? Star Wars going to look like that? Valentino could have had girls! But yeah, for anyone asking me to make a video like this about stuff like Ruby Gillman or Moana 2, I wouldn't count on it. Moana 2 was something that I always figured wasn't going to be too good after I found out it was another Disney sequel made of 3 episodes of a canceled TV show, Frankenstein Together. Like the good old days, yay. And Ruby Gillman was something I still got enjoyment out of, even if it wasn't the best film ever. That and I can't go making enemies out of everyone in the animation industry by going, your movie sucks, I'm gonna fix it, to every animated film I dislike, you know? I already probably compromised one potential job. I'm not trying to kill all my industry opportunities like some kind of Monster of the Week TV show. PonCon again 9718 asks, who/what is your favorite thing to animate? I like doing character animation. It takes a while, but it's super satisfying when you manage to get it done and can just be like, look, I made a guy move, and it doesn't look awful. I have more fun with simpler characters since it doesn't take nearly as much time, like this little creature I designed a while ago and used in my first ever lip sync assignment. Her name is Billy. Little Demon Bunnies asks, what was the most difficult thing you've had to animate?
Nothing's ever what it seems.
Goose Girl 1037 asks, who would win, you or a zombie moose? The zombie moose. I'm 5'2", built like olive oil from Popeye, and I'm not trained with firearms. Princess Emmy asks, will we ever get a chance to see the I'm a Star rewrite song from your Wish rewrite? Since you said you rewrote the entire song, I honestly would love to see how you took a cringy song and rewrote it to fit your rewritten version of Wish. One day I would love to record a cover of my I'm a Star rewrite. I was actually thinking of trying to do so before the Wish rewrite video dropped, part 1 at least. But the difference between I'm a Star and this Wish is that my I'm a Star rewrite would have had at least 3 parts to it. Starboy/Chance, Asha, and Valentino for a little bit. I asked my brother if he would be fine doing the star parts. He's a music major and also in an a cappella band, so he knows how to sing. But Julia Michaels and Benjamin Rice being the music people in this movie came to bite me in the butt because he said he was trained for more operatic music, and I'm a Star is way too pop sounding for him to sing it comfortably. Then I thought about just doing the star parts myself and seeing if I could ask Kawiria, the voice actress who plays Asha in the video essay, if she'd be fine doing Asha's parts. But also, she was kinda very busy with the other self-indulgent Wish-related project that I had gotten her roped up in, so I decided, hey, maybe let's not. Same with asking if Bananas was cool with the 2 Valentino bits in the song. I wasn't sure how busy she was and didn't want to bother her after she already helps out so much with the video essay. But I would love to make this cover eventually and share it with you guys. Now that I think about it, when Julia Michaels recorded the demo, she just did all the parts herself. I guess I could make the cover by myself, actually. Savio Yusuf asks, what's it like being an animator? Is it exhausting? Does it take so much time to draw the characters perfectly in their movements? Also doing the voices and lip syncing? It depends on what you're animating, if I'm being honest. Like I said before, character animation is like what I usually animate, and it's a lot of fun, but I know it's definitely not for everyone. Effects animation is also fairly easy, doing stuff like smoke or fire or water, because you don't have to worry about in-betweening, you just animate movement, if that makes sense. Lots of digital animation programs like Adobe Animate and Toon Boom Harmony also have ways to make rigged figures, which cuts down a lot on the time it takes to animate, because you don't have to redraw the character for every frame. Now with Mino, I use Clip Studio Paint X to animate, and if there's a way to make rigged drawings for rigged animation in that program, I don't know it. Everything I animate are frames I draw completely by hand. There's also a saying one of my professors told us that goes something like, every line costs $1. The less detailed your character design is, the easier it'll be to animate. That's why the one extended piece of animation in the Wish video is of my Sona, who's just a little Muppet looking thing with stick figure legs, dot eyes, and a bean mouth. That's also why in Steven Universe, for example, you see such a drastic change in the style of the pilot versus the final show. Lip syncing is a whole other beast. Programs like Toon Boom and Adobe Animate allow you to scroll through the timeline and it plays back the audio as you scroll, but Clip Studio Paint doesn't do that. So the only way for me to check if the lips line up is to just hit the play button and have it show me the whole preview. And sometimes if the file's too big, the replay might be off slightly. So lip syncing is a lot of trial and error for me. I am the best 3060 asks, what's your voice type? I assume you mean in choir terms. I'm a second soprano, or mezzo-soprano, I think is the proper term. I'm in the same vocal range as Idina Menzel. There were only 3 of us in high school choir, one of them was my sister, so I more often than not was stuck singing the alto part in any given song, except for the 1 or 2 solos I managed to land. Speaking of which, I'd rather not have my voice actors start writing, so here goes. I'm past patiently waiting, I'm passionately smashing every expectation, every action's an act of creation. I'm laughing in the face of casualties and sorrow. For the first time, I'm thinking past tomorrow. Flash TYB asks, what's your favorite show to binge watch, either on Netflix, YouTube, or actual TV? I know a lot of people say this, but Bluey, unironically. I put it on in the background while crunching on a student short film I was helping animate once, and it was so relaxing, it actually helped a lot. Also, it's just genuinely easy to binge watch because there's over 100 episodes now, I think, with season 3 out, and each episode is literally like 6 minutes. You could get through a whole season in like a day. Oh hey, this one fits here too. This is from Asha's voice actress from the Wish video, Opalescent. Do you like reading novels, comics, nonfiction? And if so, what are you reading lately? I do like reading. Unfortunately, my reading endurance Yeah, let's call it that. It's dwindled over the years. Most books I find myself picking up these days are graphic novels and comic books. One of the comics I've been reading for years now is The Glass Scientist by Sage Kutungo, which says a lot about my opinions on old-timey books I read in high school English. It's gaslit fantasy Jekyll and Hyde with Frankenstein in it as well. Another one I picked up recently at this tiny, and I mean tiny, convention is Tinseltown. Definitely more adult-oriented. It deals with early Hollywood and corruption and also time-accurate misogyny, but it was a fun read. Another comic I've started picking up again is the Olympian series by George O'Connor. They're fun retellings of Greek myths, complete with an appendix at the end of each book pointing out all the little references in each volume and what they mean. It's really fun. The art and panel work in the series is sick, and if I still haven't convinced you yet, let me read you this note in the appendix of the volume about Hermes. Stop right now. Go to YouTube, look up something called Yakety Sax, press play, and read these 4 pages with that as your soundtrack. In an ideal world, each volume of Olympians would be an unlimited number of pages, and this chase scene would extend for like 88 pages. The Hauser Bunch 4818 asks, what was the inspiration for your original story? This question is referring to the webcomic project I mentioned briefly in my Wish video while I was talking about the music in the film. I'll have to actually explain what this is about first, and I don't plan on pitching it to a network anytime soon for not family-friendly reasons, so I don't mind info dumping about this as much as other stuff. This is Overtracked, Rock Band of the Apocalypse, a story about a world where the mutually assured destruction event everyone was worried about during the Cold War actually happened. Sometime in the 80s or the 90s, I haven't figured it out yet, it's supposed to be vague. Everything got nuked in an event called the Neon Hail. But it's 100 years later now and everything's back to normal. Sort of. And now it's the Neo-80s in New York City, and we follow the lives of 3 dudes in a rock band called Overtracked. Calvin Carter, Rhodey Banks Patel, and Steve Schumacher. Calvin is the main one we focus on, because he gets himself infected with an irradiated parasite that calls itself Ziggy after they listen to a David Bowie CD and the little freak liked the name. Ziggy gives Calvin mutant superpowers whether he wants them or not, but it also puts a target on his back because, fun fact, in this timeline, 4 out of 5 of the New York City boroughs are being run by a motorcycle gang called the Scrubs. They're called that because if you cross them, they scrub you off the census. And their leader, a man simply called the Doctor, has the same kind of parasite that Calvin does. His is an octopus, not a snake though. Also, his big bargaining chip is the fact that he has the parasite because he was under the impression that he had the last one in the United States. So this random idiot from Queens having one out of the blue does not bode well for his power over New York City. There's a few inspirations for this one. A big one was the Guitar Hero series, surprisingly enough. I played the games a lot on my old Wii, both Heroes of Rock and World Tour. I think the cool factor of the boss fights where you play really sick guitar covers at each other combined with the overall aesthetic of the series just stuck with me. It's also to blame for my taste in music being a lot of what the kids like to call dad rock. And fun fact, my copy of Guitar Hero World Tour was pre-owned and still had an old save file on it. The band's name on the save file was, in fact, Overtracked. Other inspirations for Overtracked Rock Band of the Apocalypse include the Rule of Funny style alternative history world building I've noticed a lot in Team Fortress 2, the film Escape from New York that I watched one time with my dad, Nelvana's old animated film Rock and Rule, that was a big one actually, the urban Mad Max aesthetic of the whole thing changed my brain chemistry, and, of course, Spider-Man. Atlas LLM, oh hey, it's my buddy Atlas, hiya! She asked, who's your favorite OC you've made and who is your least favorite? Oh man, here's a fun one. I'm usually the kind of person to be like, I can't choose a favorite OC, that's like picking my favorite child! But I'll humor you for this one. One of my faves is one I haven't really talked about much on the channel since I haven't posted anything with him in it. It's Jack Ridley, baby! I made him originally for a school assignment where we had to take characters from Jack and the Beanstalk and make proper animation character designs for them. Like, go through the whole visual development process and everything. We were allowed to do whatever we wanted with it, just as long as it was still obviously that character from Jack and the Beanstalk, you know? So I decided to take Jack and make him a cyberpunk gentleman thief. And now he's got an entire storyline that I don't want to talk too much about because I'd love to pitch it to a network one day and I don't want to spoil anything. Least favorite is not because I actually hate him, but more just me being like, God, can you be anyone but yourself for 1 second, please? And that's Calvin, the main guy from Overtracked. Now, he's a pretty cool character in concept. He's the frontman of a rock band, he has mutant snake powers, and he's conventionally attractive. But he also has so many problems. To put it bluntly, he's a ladies' man who thinks he's straight, and ends up doing a lot of dumb things before finding out that he likes men and proceeds to fail harder than you could ever imagine. This dude kills a man, and that's the least problematic thing he does in the story. Skystrike 41508 asks, what's your biggest hobby or passion, excluding art and animation? If me talking extensively about my childhood playing Guitar Hero didn't clue you in, I'm a filthy gamer. I have a Nintendo Switch and I still have an old Wii U that I use to revisit said Guitar Hero games sometimes, though I haven't played in a while. I'm still trying to beat Misery Business on Expert to this day. I've also played Hades, Animal Crossing New Horizons, and Sea of Thieves. These days, though, the most I've been doing is slowly chipping away at Cult of the Lamb and It Takes Two with my buddy Trussell. Art school eats up a lot of your time, guys. Tree Potion 9249 asks, favorite video game? Well, I already mentioned Guitar Hero, Cult of the Lamb, and It Takes Two, but those aren't my fave, you know? That honor goes to the Legend of Zelda series. Skyward Sword was the first game I ever bought with my own money, and it holds a special place in my heart, as flawed as it is, as do Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom. I'll put it this way, I love Guitar Hero, but it didn't inspire me to write an almost 300k word AO3 fic, but we don't need to talk about that right now. Unless y'all want me to. Real Thick asks, what's your favorite comfort food? Salmon Pokey. Smallboy638 asks, in your opinion, what is the most underrated animated movie? Whereas Anne Frank is one of my favorite animated films of all time, and I'm sad there's no legal way to watch it in the US. Okay, so I know that movie title alone is a lot to take in, so let me explain myself real quick. Whereas Anne Frank is a magical realism film, which I know Anne Frank and magical realism are not things that should go together, but it oddly works. It's about the imaginary friend Anne wrote to in her diary, Kitty, suddenly coming to life in modern-day Amsterdam in the Anne Frank House Museum. And she doesn't know what happened to Anne or her family, so she goes looking for them. And no one tells Kitty what happened to Anne because it's modern-day Amsterdam, and they think she's joking or something because how can you not know what happened to Anne Frank? It's a profound movie about how people will honor tragedies and try to make amends, shown in this film when the Amsterdam police, thinking Kitty is joking, tell her that Anne Frank is the bridge, the school, the theater, the hospital, all structures named in her honor, but won't acknowledge what actually happened that led to them feeling the need to name all these things after a child who was murdered by an evil regime. There's even a subplot with Somalian refugees hiding out in an old building in Amsterdam and how they're looking for asylum because there's war going on in their homeland, but every European country they've come to has turned them away. I've seen some people who have seen this movie argue that the Somalian refugees being refused asylum and possibly being deported back to their war-torn homeland in the modern day is not the same as what was happening to European Jews in World War II. But it probably says a lot about how good my high school world history class was when I saw that subplot and my first thought was, oh, America kinda did that in World War II though, didn't they? Anyways, I say watch it if you can find it, but also be prepared to cry your eyes out because as beautifully animated as it is, it's still a movie about the Holocaust. Nova708 asks, what's the most profound thing you've learned in your 4 years as an animation student that really impressed you? This is a tough one because I don't remember a whole lot that I'd quite classify as profound, but I know there's a lot that has definitely rewired my brain when it comes to art. However, there is one that comes to mind, and it was when my character design professor answered a question that no other Western art college person had answered for me up until then. Why do art professors hate anime? Context, when applying for art schools, you have to submit a portfolio depending on what kind of major you're applying to. Graphic design, illustration, animation, all of those, though technically art majors, they have different requirements and guidelines for what to submit. Of all the animation majors I applied to, they all had one thing in common. No anime style anything in your portfolio. And that sounded pretty weird to me. You know, lots of popular Western animations take inspiration from anime, not to mention that a lot of anime series have varying art styles. You look at Death Note or Soul Eater or One Piece and almost none of the characters look the same, but my character design professor was able to tell me why. Silhouettes. In Western animation, a mark of a well-designed cast of characters is being able to put them all in silhouette and still be able to tell everyone apart, and even tell a little bit about their personality based on how they're posed. Lots of anime, at least the ones I saw kids taking inspiration from when doodling in class, all had a habit of making their characters with the same faces and body types. Insert Sword Art Online Tumblr gif here. But this also comes back to the silhouettes thing. If you put the characters from Monsters Inc. in silhouette, you'd be able to tell them apart, right? Same can't be said for, say, the Sailor Scouts. And like I said before, the style thing doesn't go for all anime. One Piece, despite what Toei did to the women, has a pretty diverse cast of characters design-wise. If you silhouette them, you could probably tell them apart pretty easily. So yeah, on top of finding out why art school portfolio submissions have a blanket ban on anime art styles, it also inadvertently encouraged me to try a bit harder with diversifying my own character designs. I still need room for improvement, as any art kid does, but at least I know how to draw face shapes and noses that are different from each other to avoid this. Ty the Jedi 007 asks, what do you think you're going to be doing for your future? Maybe work for a company or just do YouTube? Oh, no, I could never survive with a YouTube job. I like copyright and music too much for it to be lucrative, and I don't have the executive function to run a Patreon page. Plus, I mean, did you see how long it took me to get this video done? That's not even in the script. I'm just like, wow. Sorry about that. I love you guys, but unfortunately I don't see myself doing the YouTube thing as more than just like a hobby on the side, you know? My old dream job used to be working for Cartoon Network, but then Cartoon Network Studios shut down. That and the HBO Max purge left a bad taste in my mouth, but let's not get into that right now. I definitely want to work an industry job though. I'm just hoping the industry is in less shambles by the time I graduate. Though if we're talking absolute dream job, I'll just put it this way. I think I'd have a heart attack if I ever landed a gig at Glitch Productions. Yeah, those of you who drew comparisons between my characterization of Starboy and N from Murder Drones, I'm now realizing that that may have been less of an accident than I thought. But yeah, I used to watch SMG4 in middle school between classes. Is this a real experience, watching a channel you used to watch with your friends for silly machinima videos slowly grow into a fully fledged animation studio that eventually exploded into the biggest indie animation powerhouse there is right now? I actually have applied to Glitch before, but I don't count that because I was going through a crisis after my 4th year of college and was trying to get my foot in the door wherever I could at remote animation gigs and was not qualified to be applying for anything. I didn't find out until just this last semester that one of the reasons I probably got rejected is because my portfolio was, as previously discussed, very badly put together. That, and I'm also knee-deep in school, so while I was confident I could work a job alongside everything else, I can understand if other places weren't. But I know better now. I know to wait until I graduate to try anything job application-wise. So, Luke, Kevin, if any animator job positions are still open at your company by the time I graduate in May,
Down, sir.
I'm coming for you.
I got the cash in the bag, stadium packed. Born a rock star in this life, gone live it up on the attack.